If the president decides that his rival is a corrupt person and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts that for which he can get immunity?
It would depend on the hypothetical, but we can see that could well be an official act.
You cannot make this up. Donald Trump's lawyer wants us all to think that ordering the military to assassinate a political rival could be seen as an official act of the presidency. Marcus and Ankush are back with us. We crazy.
I mean, for either of you, really, one of my biggest questions that as I've been watching this Supreme Court and others over the years is the discussion of executive power and how it's expanded. And it seems like this could happen here, right? If they push this down and then Trump becomes president, this case it's a wrap, right? His people have already said that. So I guess when you think about the historical implications of the expanded powers of the executive branch, how concerned should people be if that's what happens here?
I think that's what we've been seeing since Donald Trump was in office, is like tearing down the checks and balances on decisions that he was making. I mean, that's what he was trying to do with overturning the election. There are checks and balances of Congress to certify the election for a reason, and he was trying to subvert that by going to state legislatures or pressuring the DOJ. I mean, that has kind of been a theme since 2016. Yeah. And this is just a furtherance of that theme of now, look, we're talking about the credibility of the court here today. We're talking about the credibility of our elections. And these are all core institutions that keep our democracy going. And it's just literally been a continuing derivative effect since Donald Trump was first elected.
I want to start with you, Marcus, because you were in the room, but then I want your analysis on this too, Ankush, which is another court observer said to me that they had never seen Justice Roberts so uncomfortable.
It felt tense in there. And when I talked to my family afterwards, I said this felt like the first January 6th committee hearing, that first primetime hearing we did, where it felt you could just cut through the air. But that was because we wanted the American people to see that we got it right. It felt like the Supreme Court is hoping that it gets it right. And that's what I could tell.
But wait, what is right? Is right by the law, or is right by
I told you again, I hope they get it right by the law. But you could tell folks felt uncomfortable, or they felt the gravity of the moment.
What did they look like?
So you had certain justices who were like really leaned over, like not really looking at the advocates. You had others that were talking to each other. I mean, it looked like they weren't necessarily aligned on where this line should be, or if there should be a line at all. And that's why I thought some of these hypotheticals were so outrageous, because you felt that justices were putting markers in the sand of like, we cannot go this far. Like, we cannot say that we're in a monarchy. Justice Kagan brought up a monarchy. We cannot talk about having a coup. We cannot allow these type of powers to exist. And then you had the Chief Justice, as the other commentator said, kind of sitting there quiet. And Lord knows what was going through his mind, but this will be a decision that will live on forever.
Well, it's about the legitimacy of the presidency. It's about the legitimacy of the court, and it becomes about Robert's legacy.
It does. I mean, I think this has a real... I'm fascinated to hear all that, actually, truly fascinated, because... maybe he's been reading some of the polling, and he realizes that this is actually a politically perilous situation for the Supreme Court. And yesterday, on Thursday, the scene must have been very uncomfortable for him. A third of the justices on the court were appointed by Trump. Thomas should not have even been there yesterday. He should be recused. His wife is a victim of the alleged crimes, having been duped by Trump and his allies of false claims of election fraud. Thomas should be recused. And yet he was there listening to this case. Again, it was a disgrace.
I'm just going to play this piece of sound. This is Justice Kavanaugh on the Nixon pardon. Okay, he had this exchange with the lawyer from the Justice Department who was representing the special counsel on Thursday.
President Ford's pardon, very controversial in the moment.
Yes.
Hugely unpopular, probably why he lost in '76.
Yes.
Now looked upon as one of the better decisions in presidential history, I think, by most people. If he's thinking about, well, if I grant this pardon to Richard Nixon, could I be investigated myself for obstruction of justice on the theory that I'm interfering with the investigation of Richard Nixon?
So this would fall into that small core area that I mentioned to Justice Kagan and Justice Gorsuch of presidential responsibilities that Congress cannot regulate.
One of our favorite presidential historians here, Michael Beschloss, he tweeted, "I don't think most people agree that there's not widespread agreement about the pardon of Nixon by Ford." But many other things came up in this conversation. Can a president pardon himself? Is that something we should be weighing in on here? And it was Justice Jackson that really, at the end, brought the conversation back to, why can't we just decide the question before us?
Yeah, you're exactly right to be asking that question. The thing I want to say is that framing, all of this framing about, we're setting a rule for the future, we're concerned about the hypotheticals, that is a deliberate choice. Yeah. It is a deliberate choice that these conservative justices have made. They can and should have done what the D.C. Circuit did, which is address the allegations in the indictment and resolve the case that is in front of them. They are deliberately complicating this.
And that's a big difference between the lower court rulings and the questions from the Supreme Court, was that the lower courts were focused on the crimes at hand. Can a president be immune for trying to overthrow an election? And to Ankush's point, we did not hear a lot of facts on Thursday at all about the crimes at hand. And Mr. Dreeben,
they said they didn't want to hear about them.
They said they didn't want to hear about it.
I don't want to get into the details of this case. Well, why are we here?
And I think that's concerning, right? Because they're talking about preventing this type of conduct in the future. And as many advocates have said, for 200 years, we haven't had this type of conduct in our country. And so why are we concerned about it for the future? And I think, again, that just goes onto the derivative effect of Donald Trump's actions in the presidency and the prospect that we could be looking at it again.
So if you were part of the 70% of Americans who agree that the president should not have absolute immunity, and then you watch what transpired this week in court, what is left as recourse, right? There's court reform, there's stacking the court. What do you see as the path forward? Because clearly something more structural is necessary.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think actually, as we think about this administration and its legacy, I think it will go down as having been a historic political miscalculation.
You're talking about the Biden administration.
The Biden administration to not have made a real earnest effort at Supreme Court reform. They put together a commission that produced some report that nobody read. It was not a serious effort to actually pursue Supreme Court reform. And now,
well, I would know, because the President Biden, I mean, I worked for him at that time. I was a part of the transition, and I worked in the White House, and I know for a fact, and I mean, Eugene, you didn't ask him the questions too. I was there. He himself does not believe that is an avenue that should be explored. Joe Biden is somebody that believes that in the rules and laws and the systems. And one could argue, Ankush is basically like, it's time to do things differently.
Well, look, I mean, yeah, I'm aware he has that view. He is holding the wrong view. I hate to say that about the president. He's been wrong about this the whole time. And now this court, over the last few years, is systematically running roughshod through our Constitution. In just the last few years, they've overturned Roe. They've invalidated affirmative action in higher education. They basically legalized same-sex discrimination. They threw out part of the Biden administration's signature domestic policy effort on the student loan forgiveness plan. And now they seem poised to issue some sort of ruling that will change the law, which had already been in place for a couple hundred years. We all assumed a president could be criminally charged after leaving office, to now come up with some crazy new doctrine. And
to say nothing of the Idaho case that they are listening to right now, which is like all of their chickens coming home to roost.
Oh, yeah, and it's like, we don't want to save women.
All of the cases coming back to them after Dobbs is a mess. And this immunity ruling, if it comes out as I think most of us kind of are expecting, it will go down in its history as a practical effect, as a practical matter, as a sequel to Bush versus Gore.
No, I saw our good friend Andrew Weissman talking about the lower courts, what they can do in response, and that's just where I'm hoping it goes. Those of us, Ankush, I'm probably in your experience trying these evidentiary hearings, you actually can get more evidence in an evidentiary hearing before the judge than you can for a jury. And so if this is remanded, I hope that the American people can learn of the facts that
you are really our signature.
Give us hope, Marcus.
I'm trying. I'm going to.
Let me ask you, Marcus, because sometimes when we talk about what happened at the court and you look at the volley, it gets framed as like it was not a good day for Jack Smith's team, right? Which was there anything Dreeben and his team could have done differently, or was this whole thing
absolutely not? Ankush and I were talking about this before. Dreeben put on one of the better oral arguments I've ever listened to or witnessed.
He was excellent.
He was excellent. And in fact was able to go where the court was going with these hypotheticals to his fallback position of going with Justice Barrett of like, that's a private act, we can try this case because another thing is in the outer perimeter. I mean, he was there was nothing he could have done. And I think that's why the justices spent an hour and 45 minutes with him and only just short of an hour with Trump's attorney, because he was that good on his feet. And I think they were trying to find the line that they can make this opinion with, which I think we all know it's probably going to be remanded for further proceedings. But I think they were trying to find that line of what's reasonable through Dreeben.